All right, we've been having interviews every week, and I'm really excited to ask Casey Horst to come up and join us. This has been my favorite part of the series, by the way. I hope you guys have enjoyed hearing different stories from different people. Oh, thanks. I hope you've enjoyed hearing different stories from different people. I think it's a great chance to just hear what people have been through. Here, let me get this for you. All right, and on. All right. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Can you tell me a little bit about your faith journey growing up?
Sure. So my name is Casey Horst. I am originally from Western Pennsylvania. So we've been here about 13 years, and so I will start my story here. So I grew up going to church pretty much every Sunday with my family. We attended a small Presbyterian church, the PCUSA, less than a mile from our house, and my dad, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, I think, they all went to that church at some point. So I was like in a generational church. I learned the usual things in Sunday school, and for me it was never super exciting, but I always remember being really interested in God and learning more about him. And eventually that interest turned into more of an excitement about Jesus in my middle and high school years. And I was really involved in my church and youth group programs by choice. That was something I really wanted to do. No one was forcing me. I knew that when I went to college, I wanted to dive into a church right away. So I was basically like, I refuse to be one of those people who just falls away because I went to college and it wasn't convenient anymore. So pretty much the first week of freshman year, I started going to ACF at Penn State, where I met a whole bunch of Christian friends, and that was really formative experience for me and lots of lasting friendships, and kept one.
That's Kyle, for those of you who don't know.
Yeah, that's Kyle. I married one of those. So anyway, when we moved down here, it was really important to us. It was a priority to find a church. So we found one that we thought was a good fit, and we attended there for around 10 years.
Awesome. And what was your involvement like in that church?
So at our previous church, I was really involved. I also wanted to mention that, like, all of this, like my faith, it wasn't just this like sideline thing for me. It was really important to me and a huge part of my identity and my life choices. So it was something that I was like really pursuing. So at our other church, we knew we wanted to get involved very early on. And I didn't want to be on the sidelines and just like consuming what the church had to offer. I wanted to volunteer and do everything. I sang on the worship team for a while until that ended, and then Kyle and I, for pretty much the entire time we were at that church, we led a small group. And then eventually we started volunteering weekly in the pre-K program, which was fun. Some of our friends every week at small group were like, our pre-K class is really hard, and we need help in it, and can you just pray for us? And eventually Kyle and I were like, guys, we'll just help you. Like, stop asking for prayer, we'll help you. So anyway, we did that for a while, and then we started helping out the high school ministry as well, which was a pretty heavy lift. There were weekly Sunday night gatherings, leading small groups, meeting with the kids individually to mentor them. And then there was also an expectation where we would do training, read books centered around being better leaders, things like that. We attended retreats with them and spent time with the kids, and we really loved them. And we did the Sunday school and the high school for probably like 6 or 7 years collectively. So for us, that was pretty much Sundays were super busy for us. We often spent our day getting to church early, teaching a Sunday school class or helping out with the Sunday school class, going to church, going home, turning around, coming back early for Sunday nights with the high schoolers, and then staying late because they didn't want to leave. They just want to keep talking, which is fine. It's fun. But overall, even though it was really busy and sometimes overwhelming, we had a really good friend group, a supportive small group. It really felt like we were part of a family. But like looking back now, I'm not really sure that was a good thing for us.
So what caused the rift that you felt with that church?
So COVID happened, if anyone remembers that. Excuse me. COVID, George Floyd. Our family was taking a super cautious approach to COVID, and at the same time, like as we're isolated in this COVID quarantine, we're starting to also wake up to this reality of systemic racism in our country, and so that was really hard. And our church stopped meeting in person. They were providing virtual messages, take-home Sunday school kits. We also have 3 little kids, well, 2 at the time then. So the take-home Sunday school kits were like a lifesaver for us on Sunday mornings. A take-home VBS, that was also really awesome. And the church was, to us, following all the rules and the precautions that we thought were appropriate. And then as things changed, we started becoming uncomfortable with the measures they were taking or not taking to keep people safe. And our preference would have been stricter policies to protect the community so that we could also feel safe coming back to in-person services with our kids. Just we were so isolated for so long and needed to get out of the house with those children. But we didn't really feel like that was possible at that time. And then when we brought up our concerns, it was not well received. We were told that simply there are other people in the church who feel opposite of us, and because of that, there wasn't really much they were going to do. And then also, I was feeling passionate about starting a racial reconciliation study at the church, Be the Bridge, if anyone has heard of that, it's excellent. And so I was talking to leadership about that, and they didn't really seem to see a reason why it was important or why we needed something like that. So I just decided to do it myself without their approval, because why not? So we felt during this time, the church especially needed to be careful because the world was watching us. And in my opinion, if anyone should be caring about the poor, the powerless, the sick, the needy, why wouldn't the church, who are Jesus followers, be the first to lead the way with policies that protected our communities and our kids? And when we saw violence against Black people happening over and over, why wasn't the church saying anything about that? Like, didn't we want to do better than before?
Yeah, that's huge. How did you feel in the midst of that? Did you already kind of answer that, or do you want to get farther into that?
Yeah, sure, I can go into that a little bit. Sorry, I'm like, was cold, and now I'm hot, and I'm sweaty, so this microphone is sliding. Anyway, the way we felt with the church's response to us, I mean, partly, we were super isolated from everything, and we felt very much like we could be replaced. Because we were so involved and felt close to members of leadership, and these are people who we had spent weekends with, we would do holidays with. It was pretty surprising when it felt like our views didn't make a difference. And it wasn't just that, like, we were trying to stand up for ourselves, like we were the only ones with these opinions, but other people were coming to Kyle and I with the same concerns, and they were afraid to speak up. So we were also trying to speak for them as well. So we continued to attend for a little while, but it was hard because every week that I would go, which wasn't a whole lot, but when I did, I just got so angry. I would look around and be like, I can't even look at you. You're just making me so angry. And so it kind of set me on this trajectory to start questioning other aspects of my faith and the practice of Christianity. Like, why does the American church work the way that it does? Why do I believe certain theological ideas? And does my experience of reality mesh with my experience of what the Bible says and the message of Jesus? And these ideas felt very incongruent with what was accepted belief at our previous church. And I've been on this path ever since, and I've changed my mind about so many things that I was so sure about, and now I'm like, oh, maybe not.
So I could see how it'd be, the reason I asked Casey is that I could see how she could have been an evangelical. That's exactly how it starts to happen. You start to lose relational contacts, you start to do these things. So you kind of got to the brink. What led to you, and maybe you would even consider yourself that, what led you to give Horizon a try, though, to continue to check out a church of any kind?
That's a great question. So we were just looking for a church that we could feel safe bringing our kids. And there weren't a whole lot in the area. We felt like the policies made us feel safe, since especially we live in a rural area in Parkton. We also wanted to try places where we would see more than just white faces, which doesn't really exist in northern Baltimore County, unfortunately. And we didn't really know where to start, but if you know Tyler and Christy Graybill, which I don't know if they're here today, but if you know Tyler and Christy, we're friends with them, and they suggested that we try Horizon. So we saw that Horizon had some policies in place that made sense to us, and that was really the baseline of getting us through the doors, which kind of sounds silly now, but it was. And I think Kyle and I both were pretty desperate for a sense of community and a place to go other than our house. I mean, weren't we all?
That should be our tagline, a place to go other than your house.
I mean, I don't work full time, so I work from home or I'm home with the kids, so I needed another place to go, all right? And I was just really lonely and wanted to see other people.
Yeah. What has kept you coming?
Another great question. And maybe this is going to sound strange, but my gut answer here is sometimes I really don't know why I still come to a church at all. And it's nothing to do with Horizon specifically. Right. It's just any church. So I am in process. There are days that I want to give it up. There are some days where I'm have a lot of hope. I think one of the hardest things is now I have a really hard time trusting other Christians or anyone in a church. And it makes me hesitant to get to know anybody because I'm afraid of experiencing that same trauma again. I don't like the idea of church being like a family at all. And we still grieve the loss of our old community, and it can be difficult because geographically we live in the same area as most of these people. And we still hold some really dear, close friendships from our old church and friends that have really heard us out and sat with us in our struggle. But I'm still confident we made the right decision to leave. And leaving definitely came with consequences. Like some friendships, friends who really felt like family to us, especially since, like I said, I'm from Western Pennsylvania. We don't have family around here. So we really relied on our friends to be that. And those friendships were harmed. They were really damaged. And I'm still working on trying to repair some of that, but I don't really think that it'll ever really be the same. And so even if I know you somewhat well now, I secretly still worry that our friendship might end the same way. So, I mean, it's a lot for us, or for me. Maybe not so much Kyle, but anyway. One other thing that made us consider coming back was basically the first time after we came, Ryan met us. I'd never met Ryan before. And then he emailed us. Like, how did you get my email address?
Creeper right here.
Yeah. Creepy. So he emailed us, and the whole email was like, hey, I just wanted to know if you guys are okay. Like, no pressure if you don't want to talk, but, like, just want to know if you're okay. And I was kind of like, well, no. And he made it clear, like, it was okay if we didn't want to come back to Horizon. He just wanted to check in. And that meant a lot because I don't think anyone from our previous church had really asked us that. We had just spent so much time arguing points with people or like, debating, and no one really asked us that. And the pastor definitely hadn't, probably because he didn't remember my name. And it was kind of the situation where the pastor is more like behind the curtain, like wasn't accessible. You couldn't email, you couldn't call, anything like that. And Ryan came to our house, and he listened to us, and he validated, made us feel like we weren't nuts. And it was really refreshing and meant a lot to have you do that. So thank you.
Thank you. What about this has given you, what about your experience at Horizon has given you hope, if anything? That's the last question. We put it on the hot seat for a while.
So what I like about Horizon is it feels like a place where a spectrum of views exist, but also there's a wide net of acceptance for people with different views. And I often feel like sort of a weirdo because my current opinions are I think, very different from what maybe is the typical American Christian, or at least the circles I'm used to. But at Horizon, I feel welcome to explore those things without shame or guilt. And I also feel like people here are just people, like trying to do life together. So, whether you're Ryan, you're the pastor, or you just show up for Sunday service every week, like Ryan's just a person, you're just a person. We're all just here trying to pursue God and figure that out. But I think at Horizon also, since we've been coming, has been more willing to tackle some issues that I don't think a lot of American churches are willing to touch with the 10-foot pole. And I mean, that's not to say that I haven't heard things I disagree with, because there's always plenty of that.
I'm full of them.
If you've ever disagreed with something. Anyway, but what I see here is, at the core, it's a desire to hold dear to Jesus, but also to learn and adapt where it makes sense. And I've also really appreciated connections that we've made with new friends who've taken initiative to get to know us and include us. That means a lot. So you guys have brought glimmers of joy and light and healing into our lives. And for that, I'm grateful.
Give her a huge hand. This takes a lot of, thank you so much. I appreciate that. So you can put that on the stand. Thanks, Dan. That takes a ton of vulnerability. And just so you know, I mean, everybody who's shared, it does. Because we're all works in progress. No one's getting up here with the answers. They're just sharing their story. And especially when it still feels raw and you're still in the middle of it, that's really hard to do. But I felt like it's really important for us to hear the voice of someone who relates so deeply to this. How many people do we know who easily fit in this category of feeling like they just got wounded and they don't know how to fit in church anymore? And and that might have been you at one point. That might be you in the next couple of years. We all might be in that spectrum at some point. And it's so important that we learn how to let's hear that well. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you for taking us there. I'm going to wrap this with a few different